Dead Rising, originally released in 2006 on the Xbox 360 and later with a actually pretty good re-release on Wii, is a game I've always held near and dear to my heart. This arcade action, zombie-ridden whack-a-thon is a game I sunk tons of time into upon its release as a kid, and even still has some pretty awesome ideas buried in it that makes it a memorable experience. However, it's a series that's often left out of the conversation of the greats, mostly due to the later games releases in the series. In this next series of video I want to take a dive into Dead Rising from the experience now and how it holds up against time itself. Does it live up to the ideal I had in my head for the last 18 years, or has age taken a toll on this cult classic title? To determine this, I want to kind of focus on three core aspects once again in this review. I want to take a look at the story and what the Dead Rising is actually trying to tell you, the gameplay of Dead Rising, as well as just kind of like everything else that goes on behind that, you know, art style and bugs and all that other bullshit. So, without further delay, this is Dead Rising, 18 Years Risen. So as mentioned in the intro, I have a ton of nostalgia behind this game, being really kind of one of the first 360 games I ever bought with my very first paycheck working at Charlie's Steakhouse. I needless to say, I held this game in fond regard. I remember coming back home after work one day with my friend Cameron, and we played this for hours, all days and nights, every chance we could. And basically, short of like 2 achievements, this is one of the first games I almost 100%ed. So I came into this really nostalgia fueled. So I was excited to see where this, you know, where replaying this will take me, especially now on PC and, you know, 18 years later as games have, I think, generally improved overall. So I came into this and I don't think I left too disappointed, I'll be honest with you. To start to delve into the narrative, I feel it's apt to begin with a definition of the term camp. According to Google, camp is defined as an adjective, deliberately exaggerated and theatrical in style, typically for humorous effect. This basically, to me, sums up Dead Rising in a nutshell from a story perspective. Gameplay as well, really, and we'll get into that. You're Frank West, an independent photojournalist on a helicopter, looking to be the first to scoop a story that something is going down in Willamette, Colorado. While riding on the helicopter you rented, you fly over the town, seeing some crazy shit going down all throughout the town, with some of the townspeople eating others and attacking others, people jumping off of rooftops, shooting others. It's shit's crazy out there in Willamette. You know what I'm saying? Coupled with that, the military has basically blocked every way in and out of the town minus the sky. Geared up with assault rifles and gas masks. Any normal person at this point would be bugging out right now and saying, yo, fuck this isn't worth it. But not Frank.
I've covered wars, you know.
He's covered wars, you know. He has to be put down in a large area, basically with the mall that you're going to now be inhabiting. Jumps out of the helicopter like a complete and utter badass. Frank says to come back in 3 days to pick him up, and upon that, the helicopter gets chased away by the military, leaving Frank all alone to fend for himself in the middle of Willamette during what is to be known as the zombie apocalypse, and in the lore as the Willamette incident. As Frank West begins to exit the roof, he notices a man named Carlito standing in the way, and pretty fucking ominous if you ask me, but sporting one hell of a fucking tiger shirt, and look at that bod, woo-wee. He says something to the effect of, "You shouldn't have come here," and Frank promptly just ignores it and walks off. Frank heads down to the entrance plaza, and after some oh-so-helpful banter with the lovely survivors there,
"Can't live without my precious little sweetie doggy. Oh, where is my Madonna? Where is she? Oh, Madonna."
All hell breaks loose when this old lady decides she's gonna save her zombie dog from the zombies. It's a stretch, but it's just dumb enough to fucking work, I'll be honest. As the zombies pour in looking for their next meal, every survivor in that area, short of Frank, ends up basically zombified at that point. A strange, obviously not so government character yells from the rooftop saying, "Come here, safety this way," and Frank heads up to the safety of the security room. At that point, he meets up with the other 3 main, I guess, characters of the game, Jesse, Brad, and Otis, who never says a word. Ominous. You show them some of the pictures that you took down below, and when stopping on an ominous old man Brad then runs out and starts heading out to try and go find him. Not knowing as to why, you head down out in the mall to go and explore and see if you can find information on what's happening there. At that point, Jess is following you with a gun to go help Brad because she saw him in a shootout in the damn food court. You know, as one does. You agree to go help and start heading down to the food court to go see what the hell is happening down there at the goddamn Sbarro's. As you reach the food court, you see Brad in a shootout with Carlito, the guy you saw on the roof earlier, and after some terrible exchanging of blows, Carlito escapes on a rope like a goddamn magician. Who knows where he's really fucking going, but god damn, I love his style. At that point, Brad lets it slip that naturally him and Jesse are government agents, and you both head to the entrance hall together to go find the old man. Upon reaching it, as naturally all old men are known to do, they don't comply with any orders from any government official, and he just sits in the damn bookstore like, you know, once again, old people do. Frank and Brad decide that they're just gonna wait this old guy out because he's gotta come out for food eventually. So the next day, you head back down there and you find Brad once again in another shootout with Carlito, with this old guy hanging from the rafters above a bunch of zombies. This all escalated really quickly, I'll be honest with you, while Carlito's shooting you with a 50 caliber sniper rifle, and you and Brad are taking him on with pistols. The sniper truly seems like overkill, but after, once again, another few exchanges of gunshots, Carlito once again escapes, but not before shooting Brad in the gut, and Frank is basically has to carry both Brad and this old man back to the security room. Upon getting them both back, you lock up the old guy and you go, oh no, Brad's hurt. I think he needs medicine because he's running a fever, which naturally, who's the one to go? Frank West. That's who. As you get into the pharmacy, you realize that you're not alone there with a crazed man named Steve with a shopping cart yelling that he does not want you stealing from his store despite it being a zombie apocalypse. This is my stuff! Man, I wish I had employees like that. And there seems to be a girl sitting in his cart of cavalcade of novelties of death. As all good video games do, it leads into a boss fight where you beat the man with the cart, who also shoots you when you jump on top of the aisles. And upon doing this, you free the girl and the cart, which, you know, you're known to do. Unlike most video games from the 2000s, the girl doesn't go, oh, thank you so much for saving me. I appreciate you so much. I'm going to be the most assistance I could ever be. She says, fuck you. You're responsible for Santa Cabeza, and runs off into the darkness. At this point, Frank, utterly confused, just grabs the medicine and heads back to go give it to Brad so that way he can recover magically from this gunshot wound. You never actually see the bullet wound again now that I'm thinking about it. This is the point where the old man, now known as Dr. Barnaby, wakes up and explains that he was researching a way to boost cattle production and in the process created a wasp that zombified humans, all as a government research experiment, leading to the outbreak of the research lab in Santa Cabeza, which was then turned into a government black site to where they basically, I guess, killed everybody there, including all the villagers, which I guess is why this lady named Isabella and Carlito are mad and now have made zombies in the Willamette Mall. Checks out. At that point, as any good zombie flick does, the old guy turns into a zombie, bites Jess, and then Brad shoots him in the face. Your leads have run cold, and Frank, in the search for either the girl or the Carlito guy, because these government agents won't tell you anything, then spots the girl trying to get back into the grocery store that you had just found her at before. Frank heads down there, spots her outside the store on a motorcycle, and promptly she starts to try to run you over with the motorcycle, which seems logical inside of them all, and I give all the credit to Capcom where it's due. This fight is pretty busted because once she runs into a wall, she just doesn't move, and you have ample opportunity to just beat her head in. As you beat her head in, she basically says, oh look, I'll set up an interview with you and Carlito and you can get the scoop that you've always wanted. Knowing Frank's weakness, he says, alright, I'll meet you in that store. Frank heads to the abandoned store in the North Point part of the mall. And like all naturally bad guys do, they show up and she now has a gunshot wound in her shoulder, and it's up to Frank to get her back before she bleeds out to death. Turns out Carlito, her own brother, shot her. So I don't think you're getting that interview, Frank. After you get her back in some recovery time, you head back to the security room as Jess is giving you the heads up that she's kind of waking up. As you get there, Isabella lets you know that Carlito's plans are done. There are now 5 bombs in the parking garage area, and these release this gas that basically allows the explosion to be so great that all of the zombie wasps would shoot up into the atmosphere and fall down all over the world, creating a potential zombie apocalypse everywhere. This naturally having to be stopped, Frank and Brad head down to the parking garage, and as you drive through mass amounts of zombies collecting these bombs, Brad gets in a shootout with Carlito, who they both shoot each other again. They all both take a lot of gunshots. Carlito kicks Brad into a room full of zombies, and that is the last we see of Brad. Bye, Brad. It was nice knowing you. Afterwards, once again in the security cameras, because it's kind of where the whole focal point of the game takes place at, is in the security room. And you're just watching cameras. So naturally, you see Carlito being captured by what looks like to be a really fucking fat butcher. And Frank decides that he's going to go and, you know, see if he can save him, to try to get some information out of him about, you know, what else is going to happen. You beat the butcher. Carlito says some more cryptic shit like, "Oh, it's totally not over even though you took care of the bombs," grrr, and then dies while handing you a pendant to give to his sister. You head back up to where Carlito's house of hovels resided in and hand her the locket, which then prompts her to remember Carlito's password, you know, naturally, and shuts off the jamming tool that up until this point wasn't even a known factor, but it was evidently stopping all the transmissions going in and out of the mall. So now that that's done, you start heading back to the security room. As you work your way back to the zombie-infested mall, Special Forces drops in because now the cleanup op has begun and they're going to kill every zombie and every trace of anything happening in the Willamette Mall. Turns out Jessie called up back at her home base and they basically said that, no, we're not going to help you. You're kind of stuck there, so have fun, and you're going to get killed because you know too much. As you get back to the security room, you find Jessie, now zombified naturally because she was bitten by Dr. Barnaby earlier, just stumbling around. It really actually is impactful when it takes one solid whack in the back of the head, because she doesn't even face you to kill literally the main character that you've been interacting with up until this point, nearly every point of the game. So it is pretty impactful, honestly, if you like take a second to think about it. You also discover that all the survivors that you have been, you know, consistently helping, which we'll get into in a later part of the video, are all gone, as well as Otis leaving a note basically saying, "Hey, I stole a government helicopter and I left, so good luck, have fun, thanks Frank, bye." Fuck you, Otis. At that point is kind of where the pacing falls apart. Up until this point, it's been going pretty consistently over and over again. When I was playing through this part, I had to wait, no lie, 14 in-game hours before the next part would happen, which there's no more survivors to go rescue because they're all gone, right? And there's really nothing to do but level up, kill Special Forces, and stand there, which I just chose to sit there, and I played on my Switch during this time, so we're just going to skip over this long waiting period. Pacing issues at this part kind of suck, I'll be honest with you. Anyway, you reach noon on the third day, and Frank goes up to the helicopter pad where he sees the guy, and he says, "Hey, I'm coming, buddy," and he hops in the helicopter and starts flying to you. Frank's like, "Sweet, I'm about to get out of here. This is going to be the shit. I'm going to go home and write this story, and then we're going to get it everywhere." Well, that's not the case, because there's a zombie in the helicopter that was parked on the roof way across town. So as the helicopter pilot dies and the helicopter crashes literally behind you, causes Frank to pass out, and Isabella comes and basically saves him, which I'm not 100% how she carries him, but you know, I'll let it go. As Frank wakes up, Isabella claims that he passed out due to A, all the work, but B, because he is also now infected with the zombie virus, and now they have to go and collect a bunch of stuff in order to, you know, cure Frank so he doesn't turn into a zombie within the next 24 hours, which I don't know how it's determined. This is purely gameplay, but once again, I'll let it go. Anyway, Frank has to run through the entire mall looking for 10 different things and then gather 10 queens in order for Isabella to synthesize this drug for Frank, after collecting all the shit that you need to get, which is a lot. And it makes you track through the whole mall, which is actually a pretty cool touch. Frank discovers that the helicopter crash crashing into the main clock tower in the center of the mall has opened up this weird tunnel that's full of zombies and looks to be a way out that might bypass all the special forces that are guarding the ways in and out. And because for the effort of convenience, while Isabella was making this cure for you, she also created basically an anti-zombie perfume, which can be used in order to get past all the zombies because you smell bad. Even Frank questions this whole thing, but he has faith in what Isabella does and says it's going to work, and naturally it does. So, I mean, whatever. At this time, too, you also learn from Carlito's computer after finding a hidden file that he ran an NCO that adopted orphans and then found the orphans home, but not after infecting them with the zombie virus and putting them all over the United States, basically creating 50 potential hotspots of zombie outbreaks. This really kind of is like a tool to basically say that, oh, even once you get out of here, it's not over, but it seems a little haphazard and kind of shittily done. It definitely doesn't hit home like the in a Metal Gear Solid 2 where you find out all the Patriots on the list were dead. I don't know why I made the Metal Gear Solid 2 reference there, but I really like that game. Anyway, back to Dead Rising. The pair leave the mall through this tunnel where you end up fighting a fucking tank and beating the boss of the special forces at the Willamette, which then leads to Frank yelling on top of a tank surrounded by zombies, and then credits roll. Frank gets out, Isabella gets out, the news spreads, but people forget because Americans are dumb or something. I don't know. The ending really falls apart, I'll be honest with you, but that's Dead Rising in a nutshell. Now, I have to say my thoughts on this story is that it's absolutely bonkers, and to be honest, up until probably the overtime part, I love every fucking second of this game. The premise of the game taking place in the mall screams of Dawn of the Dead, but taken to like level 11 with a bunch of camp and arcade thrown in there. Every story beat just has to one-up itself. It's over the top, zany, bombastic. All this occurs within like 3 in-game days, and man, when you're doing like the major case moments, it's pretty much a ride. This game is the definition of camp in every sense of the word, with it just being so over the top while sort of also being believable and funny at the same time. I mean, the fact that they went to the lengths to say that Carlito infected 50 orphaned kids and then found them homes across the United States to spread the zombie virus is so fucking like unbelievably stupid. I'm laughing even thinking about it at this point in time. Let's not forget the fact that the zombie virus was made because they were looking for a way to make cows better meat producers to feed the Americans that eat meat so much. The entire game culminating with the fact that you fight a man in a tank is just so like, it just feels like the need to one up itself continues to go and go. And it just like never fucking seems to stop, even when the point where it should have stopped. Let's not forget there are like 6 endings to Dead Rising depending on what you do. And the story that we just told was including the overtime section, which means that you did all the main case files as well as got to the helipad. But there's a lot in this game that like you could completely not do the main story after like you get out of the security room. You don't have to go help Brad with Carlito. If you let Brad die, like the game just continues and you play for the 3 days and save people. It's a really cool concept, which leads to tons of replayability. I think there were achievements for every ending too. So you had cases where Frank never went to the helipad at the end of the time, and that was a different ending. Or you had, he did all the case files but didn't go to the helipad, which led to this different ending. It's really cool, and it kind of leads to this replayability factor that you don't see in a lot of games anymore. That doesn't include live service games, but like in the single player like focused experience, it's really an interesting concept in order to have a bunch of like not quote unquote fail states. You can't really fail, right? You can die, which is failure, but that's about it. And even if you die, you could just restart the entire thing with all the stats that you've accrued in that playthrough, which kind of makes it a roguelike as well. But the true shining star of Dead Rising for me is actually Frank West. Yes, he is an overtly memeable character with his I've covered wars line and just him kind of being a goofball But something about Frank also rings true. He's reluctant to go and help, but no matter what, he does step up to the plate and help out all the fellow survivors in the mall. He utilizes his talents as a journalist in order to basically blackmail people into get what he wants and getting people to tell him information so he could try to build the story, but at the same time, he's also there basically carrying the weight of everybody, including the government, which, makes a lot of sense. He's self-sacrificing, lovable, funny, goofy, and just all around seems to be a well-rounded dude for somebody who, just kind of seems like an everyday guy. I don't know. I really like Frank just as a character alone, especially in this game. He's to me the shining spot in this entire franchise. All in all, the story of Dead Rising, it's not groundbreaking, it's not moving, but I love the shit out of it. And I just love how stupid it is. It's just a damn good time. And really, that's what we all play video games for, is to just have a good time. It's no Death Stranding or Last of Us Part 2 or anything like that. It's not breaking any storytelling grounds, but for what it does and what the game is designed to be, it serves the purpose pretty damn well. And I have to say, I don't hate most of it. So, kudos to Dead Rising on actually writing something that's, fits the game. Well, the narrative Dead Rising fits the tone it's going for pretty damn well. What really cements this game as dope as fuck to me is the moment-to-moment gameplay. Dead Rising offers ample side content to engage in, from the mass murder of zombies to saving survivors to killing psychopaths, this game's equivalent to boss fights, to exploring the camera and photography system. To begin, let's talk about the combat, which is the crux of this game, as to nowhere in this mall is actually safe. Now, the combat itself is rather simple, with just the utilizing of, on controller anyway, of the X button is to whack things, and the holding of X button is to do basically a charged attack, which hits things harder. In my opinion, simple is honestly better for this kind of game, and where the real complexity comes in the Dead Rising combat is the amount of weapons and things you can actually use to kill zombies. As mentioned before, you are playing in a mall, i.e. Day of Dawn of the Dead. This means that anything that you find in the mall can be utilized as a weapon. You find a purse, hit a zombie with it. You see a bowling ball, roll it at a zombie and see if you can hit him. Go find a dumbbell in the sports store, hit a zombie with it. Find a chainsaw, cut a zombie with it. Each one of these weapons that you pick up do act a lot differently and can be used in a variety of different ways, for, shoving a mask on a zombie's head to blind it, to utilizing the bowling ball, for example, to be rolling and hit probably, a lot of zombies in the process if you're good at aiming. Baseball bats give you a wide berth to basically not necessarily kill all of the zombies, but, knock a bunch of them down to kind of clear your way. Or you can find katanas and just start slicing motherfuckers up left, right, and center. Each weapon provides a different, fast attack, or if it's a heavier weapon, they're a bit of a slower, more heavy-hitting attack, and this really works in the game's favor, as you really want to kind of have a variety of things in your arsenal at all times to kind of cover for any given task that you have at hand, right? If you have a large pool of zombies that you need to clear out, a baseball bat's a really good way of doing it. If you can find a lawnmower and just mow them down, that works too. The utilization of weapons in this game is basically endless, with lots of different, combos that you can do together and things like that. And what makes it cool is that if you do find yourself in kind of a pinch and you need to find a weapon fast, you are in a mall. Just walk into a store. Hopefully it's one that has something worth the shit and you're not in a clothes store, so you can utilize a coat hanger, I guess, which you just shove in their heads and they walk around confused, which wouldn't really help you much, but it does in a pinch if you really, really fucking need something and you have nothing. My personal favorite, because it's a callback to Mega Man Legends, is the Tron helmet, which you just basically put on a zombie's head and they look confused. I love putting a lot of these on because, Tron-Bons are dumb in Mega Man Legends, and it's fun to just put them on the zombies' heads and then fucking whack them with it. I don't know, it's endless entertainment for me. It makes me so happy. I just smile every time. You do find other types of items in the mall, such as books and food. Books basically act as multipliers for your different weapon lengths that you can use them for. Each weapon does break after a certain amount of time. These books kind of extend the duration or give you more PP points or power points for leveling up. Some of them alter how much health you regain from eating food, which is the other item you can get. And it's always good to have a bit of food on you. You start learning which ones are good and which ones are bad. Snacks only refill 1 pip, whereas you get orange juice or coffee creamer and it refills 5 to 6. And then if you couple that with the food book that boosts it by 50%, you're easily full healing on a single orange juice, which really is fucking clutch at times. You also, as you level up, start unlocking more moves for Frank, which I never really engaged with too much because I didn't find them nearly as satisfying, but they do work and you do need to utilize them in the last boss fight, which I felt was weird as well. There's a multitude of kicks and lariats and ways to hit them with your fist, but I never found them nearly as effective as just picking up a weapon and just whacking him in the face with it over and over again. There are some tuning issues that I found in playing Dead Rising again for sure this time, and most of it stems down to one weapon, and anybody who's played this game before knows exactly where I'm going with this, is the small chainsaw. After you beat one of the psychopaths, you basically unlock the ability to pick up this small chainsaw. It's literally what it's called. If you couple this with 3 different books, you can lengthen the amount that it lasts for 9x the time that it's supposed to. Now, this is easily the most overpowered weapon in the game, taking down most of these boss fights in about 3 hits, and basically eviscerating mass packs of zombies with, like, 0 swing time. This weapon is absolutely broken, and in all the B-roll footage that you're going to see me using that small chainsaw a lot, because it's hard to not use it because it's just so damn good. It's if you don't use it, you're kind of hurting yourself to a degree. Honestly, I like it. I liked the game. I found the combat more engaging when this weapon wasn't available to me. But the problem is that you get it pretty early in day 1. As soon as you get the beep to go do it and kill the clown, it's so easy to get. The other main issue with the weapons in this game is the fucking guns. I don't know why Capcom ever thought that it was like a good idea to have to stand still and shoot. I mean, they did this in Resident Evil 4 too, but the lack of movement when shooting a gun is just like, why would you ever use a firearm in this case? Because you have no movement, they don't actually do all that much damage, and they only have like 20 to 30 shots of them, like, and then you're done, and then it's over. Then you've gotten all your use out of it. So I just steered away from these, just period. There's one fight that they're good in, which incidentally is the clown fight, because you can shoot his balls, but other than that, like, don't even bother with guns, I'll be honest with you. But even when using the small chainsaw only, like, the combat's still a good time. Just clearing mass amounts of zombies with the kill counter down in the bottom right, and you turn around and you see this mass fucking field of dead zombies around you. It's pretty damn satisfying, and it's a really fucking good time. As I mentioned before, there's a couple of other systems in the game that are really actually like what makes this game stand out to me, and that's rescuing the survivors. Dead Rising is based around basically a time system, with you only having 3 days to do both the main story and rescue as many survivors as possible. While not having a crazy long story here, there's a ton of time in between main missions where the game wants you to basically interact with the other aspect of the game, which is the rescuing of survivors and the killing of psychopaths. Both tend to go hand in hand, but it seems like constantly Otis is calling you on that walkie-talkie, telling you about, he sees people in the cameras here and that they look like that they're upset, or he sees somebody over here and he looks like that he's like got these people hostage, and you get a little marker on your HUD, and you can look at your watch and go and pick it and basically go see what the hell's happening in the mall, right? It kind of gives you these focal points to go to. The survivor rescue, I think, is actually like one of the coolest parts of the game, because it really kind of gives a life to the mall, to where it is a zombie outbreak that nobody knew about. These people are stuck here and they don't know what to do, and they're just trying to figure it out while also dealing with the baggage of either a dead loved one or having their own personal problems with being stuck in a mall during a zombie apocalypse. What this does too is it adds another kind of wrinkle into the gameplay systems itself as well. For starters, as you escort them back to the security room, you have to protect them. This includes freeing them from the grasp of a zombie to literally carrying them to the end. You'll find survivors in many different states. Some have been hurt, some are sick, some are drunk, and it's up to you to either carry them back, hold their hands, give them a weapon to help fight with you as you guys make it back to the security room. This really does add a new aspect to the game, because it changes the pacing up a little bit, where you're not just killing mass amounts of zombies. Sometimes you just need to run by them, because if you have somebody on your back, you can't be swinging and shooting. It does change up how you're going back and forth, and it does kind of make you want to think about an optimal route home, because you don't want to take a bunch of people that you have to carry, because you can't carry all of them, and you have to leave with them through the zone, or else they'll start getting hurt when they're left behind. This also adds a ton of pressure to Dead Rising itself. As mentioned before, it's like a time-based mechanic system to where if you don't reach it to the end of that time, then they're dead, they're gone. You'll never find them again. That's it until the next playthrough. You also have the story missions to contend with, so there's a lot of times where you'll have a ton of survivors that are like about to expire, but you also have that main story mission about to expire as well. So you basically realize you have time for one more hella good run, and you better make the most of it every minute you have, or else their survivor's gonna die. And I'll be honest, every time I've played this, it's hard for me to let survivors die. It's an easier way of playing, but man, the challenge that it adds and just the pressure and the high stakes that you have when just trying to escort 8 people back to the safe house while also seeing that main mission counter ticking down. Oh man, the sweat that pours from my hands to that controller knows no bounds. The other prong that I wanted to talk about was the psychopaths themselves. These are basically the boss fights and basically real people who have had their minds basically snapped in the zombie apocalypse and have gone off the deep end and just killing anything and everyone in sight. This is where the real zaniness of Dead Rising comes out, because these are all people that like have worked at the mall or are part of the mall, from the old security officer who's held up these girls for shoplifting but also being too sexy, to the clown who's just really upset because he wants to make people laugh again, so he just starts murdering people and locking them onto the damn roller coaster ride in the middle of Wonderland. My favorite has to be Cliff Hudson, who literally his mind is snapped when he sees his granddaughter being eaten by zombies. He's also a Vietnam vet, and he snaps back to that, to where he's killing Vietnamese, and so he's jumping into holes in the ground and running on the other side of the room that you're fighting in, while jumping up and throwing flares and grenades at you while jumping down with his giant machete Bowie knife. It's a really cool fight, and it's just like, damn, like these fights are so well designed, and their death scenes are just like completely fitting to what their character is. Like, I can't explain enough how much I love these fights and how much of an impact that they do leave on you after a while. And you go, huh, that really could happen. That could be a thing. As we move through the series, we'll kind of be looking at how these two gameplay mechanics kind of expand, right? Between the psychopaths and how they're designed, to the survivor rescue and how that changes. I have to say that like these two are like, to me, the main pillars of the Dead Rising franchise, and something that needs to be looked at throughout the entire series that we're currently doing right now. These fights were a little easy though, and kind of one note that it's just kind of running up and hitting and trying not to die. As long as you have some food and like a halfway decent weapon, you'll be okay. And if you have the small chainsaw, it's game over. I didn't die to a psychopath once in this playthrough, and it's kind of a cakewalk, I'll be honest with you. But they're still really cool. There's still really cool set pieces to go through. Now, I say all this, and I don't want to say that Dead Rising is still a perfect game. We have to remember this is a game that was released in 2006. I played it on PC for this playthrough with an i7 and 2080 Super, and there were still moments when this game fucking chugged. There's a ton of poppin' when it comes to the mass amounts of zombies, especially in the outside locations. The AI, I have to say, is also a fucking dumpster fire as well. Survivors regularly get stuck on geometry. They don't break zombie grasps at all. They don't even try. They barely hit zombies if you give them a weapon. They don't follow for shit. They're just standing there getting whacked on over and over and over again. And when getting them into the safe house, you have to climb up this one single step. I swear to God, every time, if you have more than 2, they will get stuck running at each other, and not one of them will climb up. I had an aspect where I had Kendall the survivor. He was stuck on a wall in the middle of a fountain, just constantly bobbing up and down, up and down, up and down, not being able to jump up on either side, not being able to move away. It took me lots of hitting him, pushing him, jumping on him, and telling him to move over there for probably the good part of 5 minutes in order for him to actually like get out of the trapped animation and be even attemptable to save. It's honestly, it's probably the most frustrating thing. There's many a times I spent just screaming, get the fuck up there, go, move, do this, do that. Just act like a normal person would, please, for the love of God. The survivors really do make the experience, like, while it's also hard because of the time, it's hard because you're stuck fighting with this busted ass AI over and over again. Psychopaths are kind of the same way though too. They get stuck on geometry pretty damn easy. I go back to the Isabella fight on the motorcycle where she just runs into a wall and she just continues to try to go straight, which makes it like super easy to do and just hit him in the back a bunch. Like, there's a ton of instances of boss fights being like that, to where they're just like turn themselves into a cheese fest because they've run into a wall and they can't get unstuck. Short of that frustration, I also found like blunt weapons for whatever reason. I can't tell if this was intentional or if this was just like a bug or something, but if you hit like more than 2 zombies with such like a baseball bat or a sledgehammer, for every impact of that weapon on a zombie like body or head, there's like probably a 2-frame stutter in between hits. So it's like but like, it's so fucking painful to deal with. Honestly, it led me to just using sharp weapons or anything else, really, because goddamn, I couldn't deal with the stutter bug in this that was occurring whenever I would hit something like that. There's also just some things that just don't work. You should be able to clamber up on short ledges, and there's just some, like the shortcut between the Paradise Zone in the Wonderland is just like half the time you can't jump on that vanity to climb up the rooftop. Like, I don't know, there's just a lot of instances of things not working, and it's not really like one major problem, but more like the death of 1,000 cuts. This game's kind of a mess, technically wise, and I do remember this from the 360 days, but I was hoping with the re-release on newer gen consoles as well as on PC, some of these would be ironed out, but it doesn't seem like it. So, I mean, just be prepared. It's not the cleanest game by any stretch of the imagination. For 2006, the cutscenes are fine. They do look dated. There's no like lip syncing, and I don't think that they did any like sort of motion capture work for this. So like everything does kind of just like kind of jank as fuck. But to the cutscene wise, it's kind of part of the charm. It's pretty stylized though, so it hides it a little bit better than other more quote unquote realistic games. But yeah, bugs and all, man, this game's kind of a mess, so just go into that forewarned. Even with all the technical issues in tow, if you could look past them, Dead Rising hits real good still, even 18 years later past its release. The amount of camp and humor that can be found in its gameplay and story really let the game stand apart from other grim, dirty, serious zombie titles, and giving it some, breath of fresh air. The time mechanics are still tense and gripping to this day, pressing you for every moment of time that you have to get all of your tasks done. From the varied weapons to just the setting of Willamette Mall itself, Dead Rising still holds up as a game that's well worth playing. Even now, 18 years later. It's on Game Pass, so you definitely go check it out there if you have an Xbox console. It's also on PS4 and PC as well. I see reports that there are some PC issues as well, but short of just the regular technical jank issues that I had in my 12-hour playthrough, like, I didn't have many issues that weren't pre-existing, so just take note of that. That's just my own personal experience, though. All in all, I still found Dead Rising 2 18 years later to be a super enjoyable game still to this day, and it really did hold up to my nostalgia. It's normally like $20, so if you're looking for a good 12 to 15 hour romp, and more if you decide to play in, the multiple modes that unlock after you beat it, I think it's definitely worth your time. Dead Rising is a franchise that I do wish would come back, and it's pretty near and dear to my heart. But Dead Rising 1, the kickoff of it all, while, still kind of super jank in certain ways, really set the tone for what a cool arcadey zombie game could be. And coming from Capcom, which just got off the back of Resident Evil, like, I think this game really stands out. I don't think it's the next Resident Evil, even though they did try to position it that way with all the lore, but it's such a good time that it's so easy just to kind of get sucked into Willamette and into what's going on around you. So, I mean, yeah, I would say it's definitely worth your time and to give it a check out. Now, in the next video, we're going to be looking at how Dead Rising 2 improved on the formula and how it still also holds up to this day. I'm excited to get back to that one. I do remember Dead Rising 2 being my absolute favorite in the series, and I really hope it holds up to that candle that I've given it over the years. Now, that has been my Dead Rising 18 Years Risen retrospective. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I sure as hell enjoyed replaying through it again and making this video for you guys. In the next video, we are going to be looking at Dead Rising 2, so if you're into that or any more kind of retrospective looks at old video games or even more recent games that I just haven't fucking played yet, definitely hit that subscribe button. It helps. give it a like, give it a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the video, or let me know what you thought of Dead Rising. I love this game to pieces, even though it has a lot of issues. But I want to know what you guys think about it. So if you played it, let me know down below. I do engage there all the time. And that's going to be it for me. So once again, my name is Brendan, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks. Bye.
Right.